Today, we're pulling back the curtain on something that silently shapes how you run your business, how you see yourself, and how far you let yourself go. Assumptions. These are the invisible scripts that are running in the background. They're the rules that you didn't write, but you live by. They're the truths that you absorbed from your culture, your family, education, past experiences, and you've never questioned. And here's the thing, most of those thoughts, they're not facts. They're beliefs, and they are not the same thing. Assumptions are comfortable. They feel like safety, like familiarity. But in reality, they're a cage. And today, we're unlocking the door. This, my friends, is an episode that you don't want to miss. Welcome to the Road to Seven podcast. I'm Sheila Cummins, your host. I'm an entrepreneur, a mentor, an investor, a TEDx speaker, and a proud mom of 3 gorgeous children. Women entrepreneurs like you are redefining the game, breaking boundaries in your business strategy, your leadership, your success, and money while making an undeniable impact on the world every single day. The Road to Seven podcast is your go-to guide for building the business you've envisioned. No matter where you are in your journey, we're here to support, inspire, and champion your next move. Are you ready to accelerate your growth? Buckle up because it's time to hit the road. Welcome back to the Road to Seven with Sheila Cummins. I am your host, Sheila Cummins, and today we're diving into something that's been quietly shaping how you move through the world. This runs your business. It helps you make decisions, and it's limiting your growth. We're talking about assumptions, the belief that lives so deeply in our minds that they feel like facts. These are the stories that we never question because they've always been there. Recently, in a mentorship that I'm a part of, I was introduced to the law of assumptions. I've heard a lot and studied a lot about the law of attraction, but I had never really dug deep into the law of assumptions, and it cracked something wide open for me. The law of assumptions, at its simplest, says this: whatever you assume to be true, consciously or unconsciously, becomes your reality. Let me say that again. Whatever you assume to be true, consciously or unconsciously, becomes your reality. Not because the world is magically bending to your thoughts, but because your assumptions shape your perceptions. They shape your actions. They shape your energy. And ultimately, all of that falls into your results. And so when I heard that, it was like turning the light on in a dark room. And I began to notice assumptions everywhere in my own internal dialogue, in the way I made decisions, in the way I responded to anything presented that was scary or fearful, uncertain or uncomfortable. And then, of course, by default, I started seeing them in my clients. Now, I've always challenged women on the statements that they make because so frequently I see them present excuses as facts. But this lens allowed me to go even deeper. It's made me realize how many entrepreneurs are building businesses not based on strategy or truth, but on unexamined assumptions. And those assumptions are holding them hostage. So let's today walk through the most common areas that I see this showing up and give you a chance to pause, examine, and then maybe make a different choice. The very first place that I think we've got to be talking about is the assumptions we make about money. Money is one of the most emotionally charged areas of our life because it's rarely about dollars. It's all rooted in worth, in safety, in identity. And so many women are building businesses from inherited money stories they've never even spoken out loud. People won't pay that much. If I charge more, I'll be seen as greedy. I have to make my business accessible to everyone. I should just be grateful that I'm getting paid at all. This is the kicker about those. Those assumptions are there not because we've tested them or we've tried to prove them wrong, but we've just absorbed them and accepted them. You are not your client's bank account. Your fear of what you'd personally pay is not a pricing strategy. And even deeper than that, you are not your money story. You are the author now, and you get to rewrite it. And so, what is that assumption that you have around money? Maybe you'll never have enough. Maybe you can never charge what you want. Maybe nobody will buy. And we are accepting these assumptions as facts, as truth, as reality. And that impacts the decisions and ultimately the actions that we're taking that are creating the results in your business and in your life. And right behind that is the assumptions that you are making about who you are. So many women are walking around with identity assumptions, and they make them sound like facts. I can never lose the weight. I'm born to be a big woman. I'm not good with numbers. I'm the behind the scenes type. I'm too emotional to lead a big company. I don't have what it takes to run a multi-6 or 7-figure business. And I think we've got to dig in a little bit and ask, who told you that? Where did that come from? Who taught you that being bad with money was part of your DNA? It is an identity that you have assumed along the way, maybe through an experience, maybe through a lived truth. But when we then take that identity and hold it as fact about who we are, that's forever going to be the bane of your existence and stand in the way. And no structure, no system, no process is going to help you work through that. We have to make a different assumption. Maybe you've heard that ambition was dangerous. Women can't be ambitious. You can't want the world or go for world domination. Well, is that humility then hiding your true power and standing in the way of you taking some very bold, courageous actions to put yourself out there? When did you decide that staying small was safer than taking up space? Did someone tell you that? Was that a teacher, a parent, a loved one, a friend, a community? Where does that come from? You don't have to judge it or be angry about it. You just get to see that it's assumptions that you've made about your identity, and you get to challenge those. And what if those aren't your thoughts at all, but survival strategies that you've picked up from someone else? And if that's their strategy for survival, you get to choose whether you're going to take it on as yours. And so one of the hardest pieces about hitting that next level and up leveling where you are is shifting the assumptions about your identity. And instead of holding you back, creating this assumption about who you are going to be today to get you to where you want to go. If you don't think you're ever going to be a small woman, then of course you're going to keep reaching for the jelly beans. Of course you're going to keep sneaking in foods that you know don't serve your body. Whereas if you assume that you're able to show up and be this strong, powerful woman who is healthy, who is, whatever she wants to look like, you're going to make different decisions about what foods and actions you take to get there. So let's just stop for a second and be like, whoa, who do I assume that I'm going to be? You know, I also think we make a ton of assumptions about what we do. And I see women falling down the just trap. It's the minimization we unconsciously practice. I'm just a coach. It's just a small business. It's just little old me running this. And let me be very clear, there is no just about you. You're an incredible human being. You do incredible things every day. You're running a business. You're creating wealth. You're shaping our culture. You're rewriting the future. You're challenging beliefs. You're building something that didn't exist before you dreamed it. There is nothing just about that. If you're treating what you do like a side hustle, both emotionally, energetically, and financially, then don't be surprised when your results reflect that. What if you assumed that you were building a company that supported your lifestyle? To challenge a side hustle, you don't have to start working 50, 60, 70-hour weeks. You can still work part-time and have an incredibly profitable and powerful company. You can still make the money that you want as long as you assume that it's possible. You have to name your power before others will reflect it back. Fact. There are a lot of times where I help women challenge the assumptions they have about what their business has to look like or what it should look like. You know, the online space is full, full, overflowing even of polished, curated blueprints. This is how you scale. This is the model that works. This is what freedom looks like. But here's the truth that no one is out there saying. You don't have to build the business that you see online. You get to build the one that works for you. It can be unconventional. It can be groundbreaking. It can be innovative as long as you assume that it's possible and that we can make it work. And if there's something that's not working, we can make a slight change. It's not the end of the world. So if you don't want to have a team, you don't have to have one. If you don't want to scale a course or an online program, then don't. If you want to keep your business small but wildly profitable, let's go for it. Freedom isn't found when you copy someone else's model. That's one of the most dangerous things I see out there about people that are selling their programs and their products. This is how I made $1 million. This is what I do to have $100,000 offer. It's not normal not to have $100,000 months, blah, blah, blah. I hear it and see it all the time. That when somebody is teaching you what they have done to do something, I would literally be running for the hills. What you're looking for is someone who has achieved what you've achieved, and they help you take the process that worked for them and adapt it to you. You see, freedom is found in defining the success on your terms and then having the audacity to claim it. We make a ton of assumptions, like a ton of assumptions about what people will spend. And this one can get a little bit juicy and a little bit hairy. And then we got to dismantle the idea that people won't pay something for your offer, because the real assumption about that statement isn't about them. It's about you. And when you say no one will pay for that, what you're often really saying is, I would never pay for that. I don't believe my work is worth that. And pricing is less about psychology and more about energy. We have to look at it through a different lens. If you're undercharging, you're most likely overcompensating somewhere else. You're overworking, you're undervaluing, you're trying to prove that you're worth it. Your prices reflect your standards, not your fears. And so the right people aren't just willing to pay, they are grateful to pay. And when we can approach the world and assume that the right people are out there, and we can assume that the right people are willing to pay for the solution that you offer, I'm curious what action you have not been taking because you assume that it's not going to work. What is something you need to start doing that you haven't been doing, but you know that if you did, it's going to have massive impact? Or what's something that you have been doing that you need to stop doing that you know if you stop, it's going to have massive impact? You see, we take what we think is reality and we just make it happen. I heard someone say the other day, as a small business owner, you're going to go into debt. That's a hell of an assumption. What if a small business owner could bootstrap and not go into debt? What if a small business owner could find access to capital and not sacrifice their own personal financial well-being? We have to assume that whatever you want is possible. But if you choose to accept the assumption that all small business owners go into debt, then you are absolutely going to make that happen. I think that we also make a lot of assumptions about the future. I'm destined to always hustle. I'm the kind of person who has to struggle. I thrive in chaos. Survival mode is just a reality. That's the way it always has to be. Money doesn't come easy to people like me. Those are things that I've heard recently. And these are some of the most dangerous assumptions because they operate in the background, subtly shaping every decision that you make. They are driving the actions that you take. And here's the truth. You are not destined to anything unless you keep repeating the same assumptions. When you change your beliefs, you change your behavior. When you change your behavior, you change your results. Your future isn't a forecast. Friends, your future is a choice. So let's talk about what actually happens behind closed doors in women-run businesses. Women still face systemic challenges in accessing capital. Banks often don't understand service-based models or digital revenue streams. Many women are profitable, but still living on a tightrope of very personal financial risk. Most are still navigating business growth while raising families, caregiving, managing households, and then carrying the emotional and mental load that comes with this. But the fact is, you're not behind. Let's assume that you're exactly where you need to be, and let's assume that you don't have to stay there. You're building against the current and you're doing phenomenally well, whether you're thinking it or not. You're not doing it wrong because it feels hard. You're doing it right because you're still showing up and challenging assumptions without even really knowing it. We do this every day, but we do it subconsciously without even realizing that we're doing it. And so, what can we do with all of these assumptions that we're making? Well, first and foremost, I always coach my clients through a process of awareness. I will often help them notice where some of the assumptions are, and then I challenge them to keep noticing because awareness is the very first step when we need to make change. The second thing is once you start noticing that an assumption comes up, we want to catch that thought. We want to just notice and acknowledge the thought. And we have to ask ourselves, is this truly a fact? Or is this a familiar belief that I have told myself time and time and time again? Is it fact or is it fiction? Is this fact or is it an assumption I'm making about what is true? Then we've got to understand where that thought came from. This is really tricky in the middle of the day, and this is why a process like this is really helpful to do in quiet moments through your day. Maybe first thing in the morning, maybe you're going to journal on it, maybe you're going to notice, put a little note to come back and reflect on it. Maybe it's just noticing patterns that keep coming up, because we don't have to judge where the story comes from. We also don't even have to analyze it super deeply. We just need to ask ourselves, does this thought belong to me, or have I inherited it somewhere along the way? We just want to understand today the story, the belief, the assumption. Is it one that is yours and that's serving you, or do we get to challenge it and rewrite it? Because when we can replace it with something stronger and something that bridges where we are to where we want to be, instead of I lead my company and will come in at the next level, we might want to replace it with I'm learning to lead at the next level, or I'm expanding my capacity to receive money. This gets to be easy, or at least easier than it has been. These are assumptions that you're making that are bridging where you are to where you want to be, and they can begin to start feeling like truth until you consciously choose a different one. And so to wrap us up today, the assumptions that are holding you hostage today, they were just built to keep you safe. But safety and success rarely live in the same. Your job is to notice the stories you're living inside of and choose the ones that move you forward. You are not just anything. You are not your pricing, your income, or your business model, and you're not your past. And you are not stuck unless you keep assuming and accepting that you are. If this episode hit home and you're ready to break free from the assumptions that have kept you small, I'd love to chat. You're welcome to book a business accelerator call, and let's map out a business that reflects actual truths, not fear. Let's map out and build something from intention, not assumption. So until next time, let's be aware. Let's question everything, especially the stories that you tell yourself. And always, always, always remember, all thoughts are not facts. Choose the ones that serve your future. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Road to 7 podcast. If you loved today's episode and it brought you value, it would mean the world to us if you'd leave a 5-star rating and a written review. Who knows? You might get a shout out on a future episode. And please don't forget to subscribe. That way you will never miss an episode when it drops. If you're looking to connect with like-minded women entrepreneurs that are facing the same challenges as you, I'd love to connect. You'll find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, or head over to theroadto7.com to find all the links, and let's continue the conversation there. Together, we'll explore powerful ways to shift you into action and elevate your business to meet your vision of success. I'm passionate about aligning your goals with strategic, intentional steps, because that's how we'll grow your business to new heights. I believe in the power of women, all women, to shape a more impactful and positive world. Thank you again for listening. Let's keep building you on your road to 7.